stolen as a child, locked away in a tower. But the memories came back. Faces, voices, a life that wasn't hers. She rebelled. She cut her golden hair, and Mother Gothel struck back, spitting out the truth before leaving her to rot. Alone, trapped, until Snow White found her, and the tower's curse was shattered. Welcome to Once Upon a Crime, where dark truths, lost legends, and twisted fairy tales come to light. In a quiet village, tucked beside an ancient forest, there lived a humble couple who had long yearned for a child. At last their wish was granted, the wife conceived. But as the days turned into weeks, her strength faded. She grew pale and delicate, stricken by a mysterious illness no healer could name. One morning she stood by their window and saw, beyond the garden wall, a patch of lush green lettuce, not ordinary lettuce, but rampion, said to cure both body and spirit. She longed for it with all her heart. "I must have it," she whispered. "If I do not eat it, I shall surely die." Her husband, filled with love and worry, knew what he must do. That very night, under cloak of darkness, he climbed the high stone wall that encircled the forbidden garden and stole a handful of rampion. His wife ate it eagerly, and her strength began to return. But desire is a hunger that grows. The next night she begged for more. So the man returned to the garden once again. This time, however, he was not so lucky. As his hands grasped the leaves, the air grew cold and still. From the shadows emerged Mother Gothel, a witch spoken of only in hushed tones. Her eyes were as dark as night, and her voice colder than winter. "How dare you steal from my garden?" she hissed. "For this theft your wife shall perish, and your unborn child with her." The man fell to his knees and begged for mercy. "Please, spare them," he cried. "Take anything, just let them live." Gothel stared at him for a long while, then spoke. "I will not take your wife's life, nor your child's, if you give me the baby once it is born. And in return, I shall let your wife eat as much rampion as she pleases." Torn between fear and love, the man agreed, believing he could not return to his wife empty-handed. His wife grew well again, and her belly swelled with new life. But on the day of her labor, as the skies filled with pink lanterns to mark the birth of the queen's own daughter, the man could no longer keep his secret. With trembling lips, he confessed to his wife the bargain he had made. "No," she wept, "you cannot give her our child." But it was too late. The child was coming. Then, with desperation in her heart and a mother's cunning in her mind, she spoke. "If we cannot keep her, let her live where we can still see her. Let her grow safe, with a future. Tonight go to the palace, switch our child with the queen's. They will never know." Though burdened with sorrow, the man did as he must. Under the cover of night, he slipped quietly into the royal nursery, his own newborn daughter cradled in his arms. Waiting for the nanny to step away, he moved with trembling hands, gently placing his child into the royal crib and lifting the princess in return. At dawn, Mother Gothel arrived, her cloak dragging across the earth like smoke. "I have come for the child," she said, and with forced smiles and aching hearts the couple handed the royal baby to the witch, believing they had saved their daughter. Gothel vanished into the forest, never knowing that the girl she carried was not born from a bargain, but from a crown. Gothel hadn't chosen her name. It came with the child, stitched into fate long before she ever touched her. Faded thread spelled Rapunzel on a strip of soft, worn cloth, the only thing swaddling the newborn the night she was placed in Gothel's arms. That cloth was all she had of where the girl came from, and all she would ever allow her to keep. Rapunzel grew under Gothel's shadow, her world caged by stone and ivy. Yet every year, on the same night, she would see them. Pink lanterns drifting into the dark like pieces of the moon set free. She didn't know who sent them, only that they called to something deep inside her, a place she didn't have a name for. One afternoon, searching for a comb among Gothel's shelves, Rapunzel discovered a small wooden box she had never seen before. Inside lay the cloth, edges frayed, thread dulled with time, yet still bearing her name in elegant, regal stitching. The moment her fingers touched it, the tower vanished. The air thickened, her vision swam, and she was somewhere else entirely. A white and gold crib, the soft scent of roses, lanterns blooming outside the palace window, pink light painting the night. She was swaddled in that very cloth, a woman's trembling hands cradling her, eyes shining with tears. The woman whispered her name like a prayer, and then drifted into exhausted sleep. Far away in that same palace, a queen sat in quiet reflection. She loved the girl she believed to be her daughter, the one she had named Rapunzel, but the bond had always been fragile, as if some invisible cord between them had been severed before it could truly tie. Her Rapunzel was beautiful, but her hair was a soft, light brown, not golden like her own, not black like the king's. In certain moments, when the palace was still, the queen would search her daughter's face for any trace of herself, and find none. She remembered the day after giving birth, how she had asked for the cloth she'd prepared, the one embroidered with the name she'd chosen months before. She remembered searching every chest and drawer, only to find it gone. She had ordered a new one. The stitches were identical. The fabric was fresh, but in her hands it felt hollow, like an echo of something she had already lost. Somewhere in the kingdom, the original cloth wrapped another child, the real Rapunzel, and in a tower hidden deep in the woods, that child was beginning to remember. At first, I thought they were only dreams. Glimpses of a life that could never be mine, a cradle carved of gold, a woman's arms that smelled of roses, music drifting through halls I've never walked. But dreams don't leave the taste of tears in your mouth when you wake. Dreams don't follow you into the day. And lately, they've been stronger, clearer. Every whisper of the wind sounds like someone calling my name. Every shadow feels like it remembers me. And deep down, I think I'm starting to remember it, too. And in a tower hidden deep in the tangled heart of the woods, the stolen child was beginning to believe in her visions. That night, Mother Gothel returned. From far below, her voice rang sharp and commanding, echoing against the stone. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." By force of habit, Rapunzel obeyed. She uncoiled the long braid from her arm, let it spill out the window like a golden rope, the weight of it tugging at her scalp as Gothel began her climb. When the witch's face emerged over the window ledge, Rapunzel stepped back, her heart pounding. "Tell me the truth," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Who am I?" Gothel brushed herself off and gave a dismissive scoff. "You are mine. I've told you this 100 times." "No," Rapunzel pressed. "I remember things. A castle, a woman who isn't you. Tell me, or what?" Gothel's smile was slow, cold. Rapunzel's fingers tightened around the heavy braid coiled in her hands. In the other, she gripped a pair of scissors, their blades catching the moonlight. "Tell me the truth," she warned again, her voice trembling with both fear and defiance, "or I swear I'll cut it. The only way up or down this tower will be gone." Gothel's eyes flicked to the gleaming metal, her jaw tightening. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. Rapunzel's knuckles whitened around the braid. "Try me." Gothel's eyes narrowed, her voice sharpening into a hiss. "You want the truth?" Gothel's lips curled into a slow, poisonous smile. "You were never mine. You were given to me, traded away like a useless trinket by a coward who dared to call himself your father. Your mother sent him to steal from my garden, and when I caught him, I could have ended them, his wife and the child she carried, but I offered a bargain. Give me the child once born, and I would spare their lives." Her voice dripped with venom. "He sold you for a handful of stolen lettuce." Rapunzel felt the ground beneath her heart crumble, the belief that she was something precious shattering into dust. Gothel leaned closer, her eyes glittering with twisted delight. "And this is what will tear you apart. He didn't give me their daughter. He exchanged her for you." She paused, savoring the moment before the final cut. "Do you know who your real mother is, little dove? The queen herself." Rapunzel's pulse roared in her ears. Mother Gothel had known all along that Rapunzel was the queen's daughter, and the knowledge only made her satisfaction deeper, darker. There was a cruel pleasure in it, a perverse fulfillment in holding the power to shatter a princess's life, strand by strand, until nothing remained but despair. Gothel stepped closer, lips curling. "Yes, you are a princess," Gothel sneered, each word laced with venom. "But what does it matter? A wretch born of thieves wears your crown now, lives your life, basks in the love that should have been yours, and you? You will rot here in these cold stone walls until the world forgets you ever existed. No one will climb for you. No one will ever find you." The fire in Rapunzel's chest exploded. Snip! The scissors in Rapunzel's hand sliced clean through her braid. The golden rope fell to the floor between them, like the body of a slain serpent. "The only way in or out of this tower is my hair," Rapunzel said, her voice cold enough to cut stone. "And now, we're both prisoners." She hurled the severed braid out the window, watching it vanish into the abyss below, like flinging the last shred of her captivity into the night. The wildfire inside Rapunzel ignited. Her hand flew before thought could catch it. Crack! The slap split the air like a whip, spinning Gothel's head to the side. Gothel's breath hitched, her eyes narrowing to slits. "I could kill you for what you've done," she hissed, her voice low and curling with malice. Then her lips twisted into a slow, cruel smile. "But where's the fun in that? No, you'll die here anyway, alone, forgotten, with nothing but your walls and your screams." Gothel straightened slowly, that wicked smile still carved into her face. But now it was different, hungrier. Her pupils stretched into black voids, her skin paling to a cold, ashen hue. Bones cracked beneath her skin, shoulders twisting at unnatural angles. Her hair writhed like serpents in the torchlight. "You want to see the truth, little dove?" she rasped, voice layered with something inhuman. "Then see me." Her body collapsed inward, melting into a swarm of black feathers that exploded into the air with a deafening rush. The storm of wings filled the room, shadows slicing across the walls. When the whirlwind settled, a massive raven stood in her place, its feathers slick as oil, its eyes glowing a deep, hellish red, like fresh blood gleaming under moonlight. Without a sound, the creature launched itself toward the window, wings beating with a force that rattled the stone. Mother Gothel, the witch, vanished into the night, swallowed by the darkness beyond the tower. Rapunzel stood frozen, her breath trembling in her chest. A witch! All this time, Gothel was a witch. The truth sank into her bones, colder than the stones beneath her feet. She remembered the wooden box. Desperate, she scanned the dim corners until her eyes caught its outline, half buried in shadow. Crawling toward it, she yanked it free and wrenched it open, her fingers trembling. Inside was a worn scrap of cloth, its edges frayed, her name, Rapunzel. A bitter thought slipped through her mind. Good thing that witch didn't take it. She seized it and pressed it to her chest. The fabric was soft, almost warm, as though it carried a heartbeat of its own. Maybe there was magic in it. Some hidden thread of power waiting to be awakened. Or maybe it was nothing at all, just a relic of a life stolen from her. But it was hers, the only proof of who she truly was. Her grip tightened until her knuckles ached, as if the cloth could anchor her to herself, as if it alone could keep the world from swallowing her whole. Far from the lonely tower, where Rapunzel was imprisoned, Snow emerged from the shadows, her cloak trailing like a phantom across the damp forest floor. The air here was different, colder, sharper, each breath carrying the damp weight of moss, stone, and something older, something watching. She turned slowly, scanning the alien world Lilith had cast her into. There were no castle walls on the horizon, no flicker of torchlight from village homes, only a vast, mist-drowned wilderness, where the skeletal trees loomed like sentinels in a land time itself had forsaken. She had expected the familiar woods that would lead her back to her kingdom. Instead, silence greeted her, a silence so deep it pressed against her ears. And then she saw it, a tower, forest like a blackened fang piercing the pale sky. Impossibly tall, impossibly alone. No balconies, no banners, only a single, narrow window, lit from within by a flicker of golden light like a solitary heartbeat in the gloom. It rose out of the earth like the last memory of a forgotten kingdom, tall, narrow, and impossibly alone. Its stone walls were clothed in winding black vines, as if the forest itself was trying to drag it back into the ground. High above, a single window glimmered faintly, not warm, not inviting, but alive. Snow's breath slowed, her heart beat loud in her ears. She could feel the pull. Something was in that tower, something meant for her to find. As she drew closer, the forest seemed to hush. Even the wind stilled. The mist curled around her boots in pale ribbons, and somewhere deep in her chest an unease bloomed. And then, movement. A shadow shifted in the window, framed by a flicker of lantern light. A young woman stepped forward, the glow painting her skin in gold and shadow. She was not looking at Snow, she was looking at the sky. Snow tilted her head upward, and her breath caught. Above the tower, hundreds of pink lanterns drifted skyward, their soft glow piercing the velvet dark. From a distance, she mistook them for stars, strange, new constellations blooming in the night. They moved together in a slow, mournful dance, as though carrying whispered prayers to the heavens, their beauty so haunting it ached to behold. The girl in the tower, Rapunzel, stood bathed in the dim glow of the drifting lanterns, their lights staining the night with a sorrow too sharp to name. Tonight marked her 18th year. Once she had gazed upon them with wonder, believing the world beyond her prison rejoiced for her as well. Now the truth had sunk its claws into her. Those lights were meant for her, but her place had been stolen, her life rewritten by another's hands. Fate had twisted her birthright into a cruel jest. How she ached to cry out to her mother, to pierce the night with the truth. How she wished her mother's heart might stir in the dark, sensing the blood-tied soul who watched from the shadows, unseen, unloved, yet bound to her still. Rapunzel's thoughts shattered as a voice cleaved through the hush of the night. Below, half shrouded in mist, Snow raised her face to the tower, her hands cupped like a herald of some grim decree. Her call rang sharp against the silence, carrying an edge that felt almost like a warning. "What are you doing up there?" Rapunzel recoiled at the sudden voice, her breath catching as though the sound itself had pierced her. Slowly, she leaned forward into the chill night air, eyes fixing on Snow with the desperate intensity of a soul clawing toward salvation. "Are you real?" Rapunzel's voice trembled, thin, fragile, but beneath it thrummed a defiance sharp as drawn steel, as if she dared the darkness to strip away the last shred of her hope. Snow's gaze narrowed, her tone clipped with suspicion. "What do you mean? Am I real?" Rapunzel's fingers locked around the cold stone sill, her knuckles bleaching white. "Because this is the first time I've seen another living soul," her voice fractured, raw. "Besides the witch who keeps me." The words pierced Snow like a blade to the ribs, sharp and merciless. Something aching stirred within her, memories soaked in blood and betrayal. She saw Sarah's smile, sweet as honey, yet steeped in venom, the shimmer of witchcraft curling at her fingertips as she cast the spell that stole her parents' lives. She remembered the deceptive gentleness of Rieger's hands, offering her an apple even as he carried out Sarah's command to end her. And then, light. Lilith's voice slicing through the void, her power encircling Snow like an unbreakable shield. In that moment of being pulled back from death, Snow had made a silent vow. One day, she would do the same for another. And now, the girl in the tower was that chance. To soften the tension hanging in the air, Snow White asked gently, "What's your name?" Her voice was steady, yet carried a warmth meant to close the gap between them. "I'm Rapunzel," the girl replied, her tone cautious but hopeful. "I'm Snow White," Snow answered, her words like a quiet promise. As her own name slipped past her lips, Snow's eyes drifted beyond the tower. Far off in the distant forest, a flicker of light bloomed, brief, but bright enough to carve through the darkness. A shiver of instinct crawled down her spine. "Stay calm," she murmured to Rapunzel, her voice steady yet soft. "I need to look into something." Without another word, she moved into the forest, weaving between shadowed trunks. The glow pulsed again, guiding her deeper. When she drew close, her breath caught. Braided strands of golden hair dangled from the branches, swaying gently as though stirred by an unseen hand, each one gleaming with an eerie living light.
Snow White returned to the tower, the golden braid coiled carefully in her hands. When Rapunzel's eyes fell on it, they widened in shock. You found my hair," she breathed, almost in disbelief. "You mean you had hair this long?" Snow White asked, her brow furrowing. "Why was it thrown so far from here?" Rapunzel's jaw tightened, her voice carrying both defiance and hurt. "I cut it to get back at the witch who raised me and pretended to be my mother. She used it to climb up and down this tower." Snow studied the braid in her hands, her fingers working swiftly to reinforce it into a strong rope. She attached a makeshift handle at one end, testing its weight as if preparing to whip it up to the tower's window. "So, it's your own doing that you're trapped here," Snow said evenly, her eyes briefly meeting Rapunzel's. Rapunzel's lips curled into a bitter half-smile. "Yes, I thought we'd be trapped in this tower together, and even if I died, the thought of her dying too gave me satisfaction. But that's when I learned the truth. She's a witch. She turned into a raven and flew away, leaving me behind." After tightening the final knot, Snow gave the braid one last firm tug to test its strength. Satisfied, she stepped back, the golden rope coiled neatly in her hands. "All right," she called up to Rapunzel, her voice steady but urgent. "Catch the other end. I'm going to throw it to you." Rapunzel leaned over the window's edge, eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. Snow swung the rope once, twice, then launched it upward with a sharp flick of her arm. The golden braid sailed through the cool night air, glinting faintly in the moonlight as it arced toward the tower. Rapunzel's hands shot out instinctively, fingers closing tightly around the rope as it swung toward her. "You got it!" Snow called, relief threading her voice. "Now," Snow instructed, "tie it to a column or something strong enough to hold your weight." Rapunzel's fingers trembled slightly as she fastened the golden braid around a sturdy stone column inside the tower. She gave it a cautious tug. "It's tight," she said, doubt creeping in, "but I'm afraid it might give out." Snow's voice was calm but firm as she reassured her. "Have faith in yourself, Rapunzel. Trust that you're stronger than you think." She glanced toward the forest floor below. "And don't worry if you fall. I've gathered a thick pile of leaves to soften your landing." Rapunzel's eyes flickered with a mix of fear and hope, the faintest spark of trust kindling in her gaze. Before beginning her descent, Rapunzel carefully tucked the single piece of proof, her precious cloth with her name stitched on it, deep inside her clothing, close to her heart. Now, with the fragile symbol of her identity secured, she was ready. Snow's voice came steady and encouraging. "Climb down slowly, keep your foot pressed firmly against the tower wall, and push yourself little by little." Rapunzel nodded, her fingers gripping the golden rope as she lowered herself over the edge, feet finding the rough stone. Inch by inch, she began her careful climb down into the unknown below. Finally, Rapunzel's feet met the ground with a gentle thud, softened by the pile of leaves, just as Snow had assured her. Yet the instant she landed, the golden rope slipped loose from its grip and tumbled silently at her feet. It seemed to rest there with quiet intent, as if the rope itself whispered, "I belong to you."
Rapunzel's eyes shimmered with tears as she stepped forward and embraced Snow tightly, her voice trembling with gratitude. "This is the first time I've ever left the tower," she whispered, "and today, it's my 18th birthday." Her words hung between them, a fragile mix of hope, sorrow, and newfound freedom, binding their fates closer in the quiet night. Suddenly, the golden rope that tumbled at Rapunzel's feet flared with a blinding light, casting flickering shadows that danced wildly around them. Snow's breath caught. The power woven into the strands was undeniable. Quickly, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a shard of mirror, holding it up to the glowing braid. Reflected in its fractured surface, the true nature of the golden hair revealed itself. It was no ordinary rope, but a whip, shorter than she had imagined, pulsing with an eerie on-and-off glow, alive with hidden magic. Snow's eyes narrowed, the weight of this discovery settling heavily between them. This was no simple escape tool. It was a weapon forged in shadow and light. Snow's fingers moved swiftly, pulling a worn spell book from her satchel. The pages whispered secrets as she flipped through them, searching for the incantation that would unveil the golden hair's true power. As Snow began to chant softly, the air thickened with magic, shimmering around the glowing whip. Rapunzel instinctively took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. Doubt flickered through her gaze. Was Snow White another witch? Someone who might trap her once more, rather than free her? As Snow's incantation filled the air, the golden braid shimmered and shifted, transforming before their eyes. The strands twisted and coiled, solidifying into a gleaming whip, its handle expertly crafted from finely braided golden rope, strong, elegant, and alive. As Rapunzel watched her braided hair transform into a radiant golden whip, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You're a witch," she said with quiet conviction. Snow smiled, not a sinister witch's smile, but a gentle, almost angelic one. "Yes, I am a witch," she admitted softly, "but I was not born one. I am a learned witch." She then began to share her story, the darkness she'd faced, the witch who nearly destroyed her, and how she had risen from that shadow. When Snow finished, she held Rapunzel's gaze with steady calm. "And you? What's your story?" Rapunzel's expression softened, her voice dropping to a quiet whisper as she recounted how she was taken from her queen mother, replaced by a thief's daughter, the betrayal that held her captive, and the flicker of hope still burning deep inside her. When she finished, Snow murmured, "So you're a princess too, though only you and your witch mother knew the truth." In that silent moment, two destinies intertwined, two princesses bound by pain and resilience, connected by the fragile thread of reclaiming their rightful place on the throne. Together, they ventured deep into the heart of the forest, the trees closing around them like silent guardians of a forgotten world. Days stretched into nights as they traveled tirelessly, the golden whip serving as their guide. Its faint glow pulsed softly whenever they were on the right path, a beacon in the shadowed wilderness. When the whip's light dimmed or vanished, they knew they had strayed and turned back to find the true way forward. Each evening, as they rested beneath the tangled canopy, they whispered plans and hopes, how Rapunzel might one day reveal herself to her true parents, to reclaim the life stolen from her. Rapunzel clung tightly to the cloth embroidered with her name, believing it to be the only proof of her identity, her single thread of truth in a world of lies. Rapunzel held the cloth embroidered with her name close to her chest, trusting it as the sole proof of who she truly was, a fragile thread of truth woven through a tapestry of deception. At last, the glowing whip led them through the dense forest to reveal a distant castle rising from the sprawling land beyond. Though grand and elegantly built, the castle stood shrouded in an eerie silence, its shadowed towers looming like a ghostly sentinel against the twilight sky. Rapunzel's heart raced with hope, convinced that this majestic castle could be the kingdom where her true parents reigned. Yet as they approached, an eerie silence enveloped the place. No movement stirred within its ancient walls. Wild vines and untamed plants had claimed the courtyards and stone pathways, choking the life from what once must have been a thriving home. With a steady hand, they pushed open the heavy castle door. The golden whip suddenly burst into a radiant glow, illuminating a path toward a secret hidden deep inside. Guided by the whip's light, they entered a grand bedroom where a young girl lay motionless upon an ornate bed. Her hands were folded peacefully over her chest, her figure veiled in fragile cobwebs. Rapunzel stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper, filled with wonder and melancholy. "She is so beautiful, like a sleeping beauty."
Join us in the next episode to meet Sleeping Beauty, the Princess of Dreams. And by the power of Rapunzel's golden braided hair, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell because who knows? You just might live happily ever after.